Alrighty, this is the video for the notes for HTML forms. So let's take a look at what we have to learn. We're going to talk about some forms here. Alrighty. Oops, next slide. Alright, so how do we collect user input? One of the most common ways to collect user input is with a form. We can do this with HTML and CSS. So let's see what that looks like. So a form, again, a point of interaction between the user and a website. So we're going to collect some data. It could be their email address, first and last name, whatever kind of message they want to send us, all that kind of good stuff. So the way it works is we make a form, and from there it's going to send it to a data server, right? And there it's going to collect it into some kind of format, basically like a fancy spreadsheet, essentially. So what kind of stuff can be in a form, all right? So we can have text fields, like putting your name or a message or something, a select box. Say there's a few different options, like if you want to sign up for the email list, click this for if you want to sign up for the email list and that kind of stuff. Buttons, check boxes, radio buttons, all those kind of things, little widgets that we can put inside of our form to do cool things. But all those things have to start off inside of form tags. So form and /form, we're going to start it, and all your elements and widgets go inside of the form. If it goes outside the form, it won't the data won't be collected, and at the very least, your HTML and your CSS is going to be messed up. So validation with forms. So form validation is just a way of making sure that the user is inputting data that is valid, correct data. So we want to give the user feedback to let them know that he or she is putting in correct data. So if they put in an email address and they forgot the @ symbol, or they didn't put in the .com or .net or whatever at the end, we have to let that person know. Or if they forgot to put in their name or whatever it is, so that they can go ahead and be aware before they hit that submit button that the data they're putting in is incorrect or missing or whatever. Right, so that way it makes it a much nicer experience for the user. Nothing's more frustrating when you fill out some form, like some 10-minute form, and then you hit the submit button, and then you have to do the whole form over again because you forgot to you type in forgot one number in your telephone number or something. So how do you validate your forms? HTML5 is nice that it has validation built in. So certain input types will have validation built in. But you can let the person know that something is valid or invalid. Just if they left it blank, right? So you can do that with the invalid and the valid pseudo class. So when we make an email thing that they have to put in, right? So if it's or a text area or whatever it is, all right, you can give it in the CSS invalid and valid pseudo classes. So it would be like input : invalid, and then you put in some CSS. So if it's invalid, it's the background color is green or something like that. Or if it's it's valid, it's green, because green means go, right? HTML form elements. All right, so these are some different elements we can type in. There's a, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Where did my notes go? Here we are. All right. So input. So every input, like when the user has to input some data, we're going to do that with the input field, input element. So then you can get there's different types. There's text, radio, checkboxes, submit buttons, all these kinds of things. This is what it could look like in different browsers and operating systems. Like if you're still running Windows 7, this is what it would look like. I'm not sure how accurate this picture still is, but get the idea. So these are some different input types we have to worry about. We've got text, checkboxes, radio buttons, so password, URL, email, submit buttons, and buttons. All right, so submit and button your different input types, right? URL and emails have built-in validation. So as far as HTML5 knows what a URL looks like and what an email address looks like. So if you can, when you give it an input type of email or URL, then if they don't put in a valid email or they don't put in a valid URL, then it won't work. All right, the form will know automatically that it's invalid if they put in something that's incorrect. Here are some input element attributes. All right, so we have name, right, the name of the input field. So you want to give every input some type of name that you're going to give it. An initial value. Some of these are required, some of these are not required. Right? Everything has to have a name, though. Right? Whether or not a box is checked, like say for example, we make a checkbox input, you might want to have it checked or unchecked. Right? By default, I think it's unchecked. Placeholder, so you can give some placeholder text. You can make it required, so that if they don't fill that box out, then it won't let them submit the form. All right, read only. The input can't be changed and only read. So you might sometimes you'll see on a form like a box that where it's like kind of text is kind of like grayed out and you can't actually do anything with it. Right? You might use this in certain cases where there's like some information that was already put in from some previous form or whatever, or that they already know. So in which case, they might not need to fill that out, so you can make it read only. Pattern, so it specifies a regular expression. So if you want, say for example, like a phone number or something like that, or a social security number or whatever it is, you can make that have to fill out, make the data that they put in to conform to a certain pattern. If it doesn't fit that pattern, then it won't be valid data. Or like a date or something like that. You might need the date in 12/13/1972 for the date, right? Or you might need just the month and the day or whatever it is, and you can set that pattern up ahead of time. Max length and min length are just how many characters you're allowed to put in, or the minimum you have to put in. Again, required, pattern, max length, and min length, those are all can be used for validation. Again, they're not necessarily required, so if you don't need it validated, right, you can just leave these things off, right? All these things you can leave off, except for name. Name you really have to kind of put in. All right, so the select element. So if you want to make a drop-down box, right, you could do it with the select element. So the select element defines a drop-down list, and then each thing inside of that list, right, inside between the select and the /select, you give it an option with a value of whatever it is, and then /option over here. So if I want a drop-down menu with cars in it, right, then you would click on it, and then these would be the 4 options that you could select from as far as the cars go. Ford, Saab, Fiat, Audi. I don't know why they picked these 4, but there you go. So this is what drop-down menu, drop-down select boxes look like in different operating systems. Again, these are relatively old operating systems, but you get the idea. Right, text area is nice because if you want to have the user send you a message or something like that, this is what you would do it with. Right? So text area /text area. Give it name equals message or whatever. Again, name is going to be generally required. I don't think you could put in, because you don't give it a name when you on the back end, when you go to to get the data that the user put in, it wouldn't be labeled, so it wouldn't make sense as far as what it goes. It would probably still record the data, I guess, but I don't think it would. That makes it more difficult for the people who actually like messing around with that data to to figure out what it is they're talking about. So this is what text areas look like. And that's that as far as forms go. And there is the forms project, so your end product will end up looking something, I don't know, like this. So I've got some default text in here and all that kind of good stuff. And there we go. That's it. I will see you guys at 10:16.